It's become a routine. Prospective enrollees arrive at the NIMSI office in Alausa, Lagos, waiting in the open for hours, with little or no adherence to COVID-19 safety protocols, returning the next day to the same ordeal. Potential enrollees stand outside the gates to book appointment dates for the exercise, while those who cannot endure the wait turn back.
We came here early in the morning, we have registered, they gave us lists, we wrote everything. When they never even opened office. Now, I've written my name up to 2 or 3 places since I came, since that time till now. I've never gotten any clearance.
It's no different for visually impaired Obano Phillips, who laments poor internet service, which he says has slowed down the pace of the exercise.
On Monday, they have been able to do it, but they give me a slip. Then I book an appointment for today to come and collect the this thing. And my getting here now, they found out that there's no network again.
Frustration mounts inside the premises as these applicants wait to be called in. While officials are seen attending to some, for others, their patience is wearing thin. Although the numbers have reduced, the NIMSI officials are appealing to potential enrollees to adhere to the booking system adopted to aid the process.
We are still working on that booking of appointments because it's been helping us greatly. The enrollment activities is not only restricted to the state office. What we are doing is replicated in other enrollment centers.
The enrollment process continues to raise a lot of concerns, including the rising number of COVID-19 infections in the country, data integration, and other challenges. But many hope for changes that would vastly improve the process with which Nigerians can get their national identity number.
Well, good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde. What you have seen is what happened yesterday. And this is pretty much the same thing that you'll find in virtually every part of Nigeria, especially as we continue to talk about the registration of NIN all over the place. Now, one of the things that I have found to interest me on this matter is that there are 203 licensed agents, all licensed by the federal government to perform this activity. Why is it that it's only the NIMSI centers in Lagos, in Abuja, in various parts of Nigeria that people are going to? Why not these other licensed agents as well? We have at least 4 telecom organizations who are also licensed to perform the same function. What exactly is the issue? We know that every telecom company has offices in virtually every nook and cranny of Nigeria. So what is it that is holding us back? My concern about all of these is that we are talking about COVID-19, and we are afraid of a second lockdown. And we are afraid that the second strain is more virile, more dangerous, more fatal. And we are having such, how do I put this now? Super spreader events, super spreader gatherings such as this. I'm wondering where exactly we are on this matter. I don't know. Markwai, do you have any answers?
Good morning, Nigerians. I sincerely wish that I did. I sincerely wish that I could answer some of the questions that you have raised. I think let everyone be very clear. On a good day, I mean, if we were not in the middle of a pandemic, this will still make the news. The registration of Nigerians and trying to meet deadlines, especially for the linking of their NINs with their SIM cards, will still make the news because it is important to see how the process is going, just the same way we followed up with the registration of Nigerians for their voter cards, voter registration process, and we always follow up to see how it's going and how the process can be made easier for a number of Nigerians. for that reason alone, it will be in the news. But it's even more important, this is even more important, or it's high up in the news because it is happening in the middle of a pandemic. So I don't think anyone should think, oh, an agency is being picked on, or why are they on this matter every day? We're on this matter every day because the PTF is on this matter every day. I mean, they're on COVID-19's case every day. COVID-19 is still very much with us. And, you know, we're still seeing those gatherings. It doesn't look like much has changed from when we, you know, started the story. Yes, we have heard an explanation from the Minister for Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Asa Pantami. However, you have to ask what re-strategizing behind the scenes have gone on in such a way that we reduce what it is, you know, that we're seeing, reduce the crowds we're seeing at the centers. You have asked a very important question. There have also been licensed private operators to, you know, do this data business. Why is it that people prefer the NIMSI offices? Now, there are some people who have suggested that, oh, it's because some people don't want the information lying with private people. They fear that the information could be sold. If these are some of the things that are coming out from the questions that people are asking, what are we doing to address them? What are we doing to address these fears? Because they're legitimate. Let no one be confused. The moment we are linking, or we begin to link your SIM card with your BVN, with your NIN, which we've been told is unique to you. In fact, in many instances, we've been told to go and cram the NINs or have it somewhere that is safe. We should know it the same way we know our phone numbers. And that's what's going to identify you as a Nigerian. Then that information has become even more important because the information is no longer being stored in silos. And a lot of Nigerians will be apprehensive as to where you are keeping this information. Are you sure that, you know, and they'll be very careful for it not to fall into the wrong hands. So if this is part of the information that is coming out already, and this is just from us asking, you know, simple questions here and there, how much more would the expectations that we have of the authorities? I think it is important that, you know, Nigerians be briefed on a daily basis to say, or on a weekly basis, if that is the case, to say, this is what we have noticed, this is how we're hoping to make things better. Because let us be very clear, government agencies exist to make our lives easier. The primary purpose of government is the security and welfare of its citizens. It's not the other way around. It's not for us to ensure, yes, our brothers and sisters work there. They work in government offices. But they're primarily called civil servants. We also have, those who don't fall under civil servants are public servants. They exist to serve the people. If that is the case, and we're talking about these issues on a daily basis, then they must show some amount of responsiveness by coming out to address the issues that have been raised so far. So I'm hoping that in the following days, Ayo, some of the questions that you have raised, you know, that it will get answers. That we'll hear word from, whether it's from NIMSI or from the Office of Digital Economy, who supervises NIMSI now, that there will be some feedback to say, we have noted the concerns and this is what we're doing to make things better. Because better is how they should get, not worse. Ayo.
Yeah, you know what? There are three three critical bodies that are involved in all of this process, Mokwe. You have mentioned the ministry, Federal Ministry of Information, Communication and Digital Economy. There is the National Identity Management Commission, which has started this process so many years ago, and a number of people have put in some data and have lost the data and have gone back to renew them. And then there is now the National Communications Commission, which institutions under it, the telecom companies, are also involved in all of these. What kind of conversations are we having to ensure that this thing is done as is? Now, to further buttress the fact that the reason for talking about this over and over again is pretty simple. When it's election time, we talk about it every day to inform people, voter education and all of that, just to ensure that we get the process right. Whenever anything of national importance is going on, it is something that gives us concern. So why not this one? Now, we have been about this for so many years. It even dates back as far as 1977. And over the past, especially in this Fourth Republic, we have been making efforts to ensure that we get it done. And this is where we are now. What is raising this issue now is the fact that it has a deadline attached to it. And everything is concerned. Even students, when it's time for JAMB, the students have already been told, without NIN, you can't even sign on for JAMB. Without NIN, you can't get anything done so long as it concerns the federal government. Without NIN, you can't even do certain businesses. So it's pretty much saying that a number of things are at a full stop, if we can put it that way. How far so far? For how long are we going to have to do this? Perhaps there is a need to rethink the strategy and employ more technology in all of this. But in the meantime, let's take a look at what is happening on the front pages of the papers this morning. The Guardian newspaper is the first option this morning, and it leads with this very simple headline. Nigerians say no to another lockdown. It's pretty simple. And just yesterday also, we found word from PTF COVID-19 telling people to ignore all the things they've been hearing about another lockdown. They should ignore it and go about their normal businesses. That's reassuring, but then there is more on the front page of the paper this morning to give us ideas. Aviation health experts warn second lockdown will spell doom. Nigeria won't survive another one, economists warn. Say it will escalate poverty. Don't allow other countries blindly focus. Beg your pardon, don't follow other countries blindly. Focus on sensitization. Who's saying that? Find out the details on the inside pages. Violators of protocols inviting for lockdown, says health expert. That story you'll find on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Right under the picture you see there, Trump risks post-office conviction. A Senate defers impeachment action. This is getting interesting, isn't it? May be barred from future public office and retirement benefits. Wow. The story you'll find on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And there is a strip right under that story you see there. Be fair to me. Buhari appeals to critics. That story is on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Very interesting. Mark Pai.
Well, let's quickly look at Leadership Friday, Leadership Friday. Let's start with that one. And it says, how will ensure safety on campus? This according to varsities. You're speaking now, perhaps taking full responsibility for their members of staff and students as well. January 18 date for schools resumption stands, says Minister. States prepared to administer vaccine. WHO, CDC to deliver 900 million doses in 2021. Nigeria must start working on local vaccine. That's according to Oshibajo. We won't accept vaccine without clinical trials. That's according to Benue government. But just yesterday, I don't know if anyone else saw this. There is rumor that the vaccine is already in Nigeria and there is a black market already for the vaccine. If authorities have seen the video making the rounds, I think that it's very important that they speak up on what sort of vaccine is in the country on the black market, because some people are selling for as high as 50,000 naira. Some say, 50,000 naira per shot. Some say, oh no, it's 25,000 naira. But there is a video already making the round of the vaccine being available in Nigeria. So just before people go and get poisoned. Is that the real vaccine? I don't know if it's not. In this day of, vaccine skepticism, it's very important that, only the real and right things get across to Nigerians before they say, oh, the vaccine killed them. But Leadership Friday is focusing a bit more on stories around COVID-19. Those are its headlines. High blood pressure on the increase among young Nigerians. Yeah, that's happening. Lifestyle, irregular checks, responsible. That's according to experts. And you also see there, federal government inaugurates committee. I'm looking at Leadership Friday. I don't know if there's a copy of it for you to be able to see. FG inaugurates committee to implement 50 billion naira export expansion facility. There are a number of other stories right there, but you might want to do them yourself. 64 insurgents killed in Yobe. 4 nursing Kaduna mothers abducted. It's on page 10. That will be it for the paper.
The Vanguard newspaper this morning has this one. Foreign armed Fulani herders trooping into Oyo. That's according to ex-DMI boss, General Kunle Togun. You may want to find out the details on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper, or the Vanguard newspaper, beg your pardon. Foreigners fueling insecurity in Oyo, according to the governor. Some traditional rulers backing Fulani herdsmen, ascribed to Wosheni. A serious situation, says YCE. They should be arrested and detained, according to Agbekoya. The details you'll find on page 5 of the paper this morning. Right above the nameplate, 3 stories there. One of them, 51 years after, Nigeria hasn't learned from civil war ordeal. What does that mean? Please take a look at page 13. Nigeria's debt service fee rises 89% to 803 billion naira. Wow. Wow. Anyway, that's on page 13 of the, on page 19, beg your pardon, of the Vanguard newspaper. So many stories to pick on the front page. 4th mainland bridge preferred bidders to emerge Q3 of 2021. That story is also on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. On the back page is sports, AFCON qualifiers. Awoni displaces Iheanacho, Onuachu retains shirt, among several other stories on the back page. That's the Vanguard sports page this morning.
Let's quickly look at Daily Trust for you there. You see there, they have this controversial headline. Amotekun, that's how they caption it, goes berserk, kills 11 in 3 weeks. That's how they caption the story. Concerns over abuses in Oyo. We've passed to carry arms, as according to state commanders. Regional outfit must not act like police. That's according to Amnesty International. Operatives trained with neo-colonial methods, that's according to Falano. So they also have pictures of the operatives there for you. Troops killed 2,403 terrorists, bandits, kidnappers in 9 months, that's according to the federal government. Be fair to my government, Buhari tells critics. Okay. And then if you look at the bottom here, Northern elders to elite. Rescue Nigeria from failed leaders. It's on page 9 of the story. A number of other stories you find at the bottom there. 53 health workers test positive for COVID-19 in Edo. It's on page 12 of Daily Trust. Let's leave it there for the paper.
Take a look at the Nigerian Tribune this morning. No harm must befall cooker. Can warns. That story is on page 2. Nigerians have rights to live freely in any part of the country, says Autumn. You'll want to find out the details on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. FG inaugurates committee to implement 50 billion naira export expansion facility. Find that on page 6. Some Good business ideas there. And several other stories on the front page, including Amotekun dismisses member for killing resident, hands him over to police. COVID-19 vaccines. Kano, Lagos get highest allocation. Cross River gets 1,023 doses for its 3.8 million population. That's interesting. Find that story on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And UI cancels 2019-2020 academic session. Well, what that means, you want to find out on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. The back page has sports. Ihalo eyes MLS after Old Trafford fulfillment, and several others to choose from. That's the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Today has this one. Governors move to take over COVID-19 vaccines distribution meet Wednesday. Say experience of polio eradication will be useful. Urge Buhari to persuade traditional rulers to back vaccination. That's also on the front page. 96 firms bid for rehabilitation of NNPC pipelines depots. That's also there. To stem tax evasion, experts seek tighter transfer pricing regulation. Nigeria is better than I met it, says Buhari. Your performance below average, insists PDP. Afenifere, it's on page 9 of the paper. And you also see there, no harm must befall Kuka. Can warns. It's on page 5 of the paper. Let's leave it there for this day newspapers.
The Nigerian News Direct leads with this one. Nigeria better governed now than 2015. That's ascribed to the president. The story is on page 3. 30 million companies crumbled. That is ascribed to the PDP. Well, the details are on the inside pages. 96 companies bid for rehabilitation of NNPC's downstream infrastructure. That's also right there. Judicial panel of inquiry. Petitioners want panel to influence court verdicts against police. That is on page 9 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and so many other stories to choose from. Presidency hails, lists achievements of military as Nigeria marks Armed Forces Remembrance Day. That story is on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Markwe.
Well, that's where we have to leave it for the papers here in Abuja, unless you have some more in Lagos.
Okay, let me just skim this one. The Daily Times newspaper is also interested in what is happening as far as Father Kuka is concerned. Outrage grows over threats to Kuka's life, among several other stories you'll find on the front page of the paper this morning. But I guess that's it. That's all the papers we have for you today on the papers today. Let's take a short break and be back to take on the issues for the day. Just stay with us.
The NSAS has shaken the delicate fiber of the security architecture in parts of the country. Southwest Nigeria being one of the most affected. Trust has become scarce. Impunity is enthroned. Jungle justice festers like a cancerous sore.
Once somebody shouts Ole, everybody just rushes out from Lungu, from different corners, and begin to pursue a man that is presumed innocent until he's investigated and the church pronounces, the judge or the court or the magistrate pronounces him guilty of such offense.
Across the Southwest region, residents bear their minds on the current security challenges in their various states. From Osun State, there are mixed reactions.
Security has collapsed, and the federal government they have not done enough.
In Ekiti State, to Ondo State, where kidnapping and banditry threaten the peace.
God is protecting us there because there is no security. The security is not okay, it's not enough.
Until when all these things are eradicated, it is then we can come out as citizens and say that, okay, government has really tried or not.
Residents want unemployment tackled.
Even the job they get that they are doing, they are not paying them very well. So this is one of the things that makes youth engage in some of those things.
Efforts at curbing crime did not go unrewarded in Ogun State.
227 suspected cultists, 24 suspected kidnappers, 47 rape suspects, and 2,324 persons suspected of other crimes.
The Amotekun initiative, jointly founded by all the 6 Southwest governors, appeared to be the answer for communal inclusiveness to improve security.
The government needs to redesign the security network within the Southwest as much as possible, work with traditional rulers within the communities, and those community vigilantes would perform greater work.
Government at all levels are constantly making provisions to rejig the security systems put in place across the region, from provision of vehicles, communication gadgets, firearms, and other logistics. However, the greatest challenge yet appears to be attitudinal.
Our people must also be ready, to get reoriented. The value system that has broken down, we must have a rebirth.
Apparently, all hands must be on deck by all stakeholders to change mindsets, to restore trust, courage, and mutual respect in order to improve efficiency of security operatives who continue to insist that jungle justice must not find a place in the social order. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
Well, thanks for staying with us. Security is the first item on our agenda this morning, and rightly so, because if you also listen to, if you were part of us in the conversation we heard before now, when we're looking at the papers, you see that a good number of papers, the Vanguard newspaper and the Daily Trust newspaper in particular, were very specific about the activities of the regional security network in a particular state, in Oyo State to be precise, their activities and how come it is generating so much concern. Let's just dive straight into it. The essay on security matters to the Oyo State Governor is here with us. He is also former Commissioner of Police, Lagos and Benue States. Fatai Oshini, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
We also have security consultant and strategist, Eladi Thompson. Thank you also for being a part of this conversation.
The pleasure is always mine.
Yeah, let us begin with you, Mr. Oshini. Bring us up to speed. On the front page of the Daily Trust, we have that story that says Amotekun goes berserk, kills 11 in 3 weeks. And the front page of the Vanguard newspaper is saying foreign and armed Fulani herders are trooping into Oyo. What exactly is happening? Let's take the fact that there have been killings attributed to Amotekun, whom of course you have copiously defended over time. What's happening?
It is what it is. It's just here that I followed your newspaper review. Of course, the Oyo State Security Network, Amotekun started its operations about 6 weeks ago. And of course, yes, something gave birth to it. And of course, it's a creation of the law. They're supposed to operate within the ambits of the law that created them. And, you know, their coming out more or less coincided with the EndSARS thing, which left most of the states with a gap with regards to security. And, you know, the EndSARS thing also gave, and is still giving, some of the criminal elements that confidence that they can always have their way. For example, you have places where you will receive distress calls that some people are operating. And by the time you get there, the hoodlums you want to go and stop will start stoning you, to the extent that it's that bad that, for example, in Oyo State, that the police, you know, and the state security outfit, the Operation Burst, jointly with Amotekun, most times they have to retreat. But when these things persist, and you still have confrontation from these criminal elements, the hoodlums, in the process, things will happen. Most of the operations that had been carried out by Amotekun weren't done, you know, alone by that outfit. Some of the operations are carried out, you know, together with the conventional security outfit and some of the non-state actors. It's just the narratives that come out in some cases that you see. When you have a situation where you are confronting criminals and the criminals want to fight back, you may see casualties. But when the narratives are given out and the people that came out to say that this EndSARS thing, some criminal elements joined, you know, so that they could be doing their thing. So it follows that you will still have some people that will not like the outfit. And so when stories are written, the narratives that are pushed out sometimes may not be the reality.
Well, you may have to be a little clearer on that, because, you know, one of the, you may also want to confirm whether or not it is true that a civilian, unarmed, was also killed. One Tosin Thomas was killed, you know, just a few days back. He wasn't armed, and it was just some trigger-happy, a trigger-happy operative of Amotekun that, you know, performed the operation that killed the young man from the account of the leader of the team that went to the fuel station at Mokola in Ibadan. So, just exactly what happened at that point, and how do we know that these things are not replicated in all parts of the state?
You know, for that specific matter that happened yesterday, you can see that the commandant responded, and of course, the guy had been taken into custody, is going to be prosecuted. But the way I want you to look at it, this is an outfit that started operation about 6 weeks ago. Even the ones that have been there for years, you still have things like this. Well, so it is a lesson learned.
I know you understand it better. Yes. I mean, you've been in this business for long enough to know. So a unit started work 6 weeks ago. In 3 weeks, 11 people have been killed. If one is to extrapolate, I mean, you can imagine what people will be thinking.
No, that's why I said, if you said 11, how many of them are criminal elements? Yes, nobody wants to support extrajudicial killing. When it comes to security, it is you that is right on the ground that have to take a discretion as to how you defend yourselves.
But
if you meet a criminal that had faced you with weapon and you
the understanding that you gave us part of the time when you came here was that Amotekun was primarily to gather intelligence and hand to the police. Yes, a good number of people have been arrested and handed to the police, but 11 people killed in 3 weeks by Amotekun operatives alone, that definitely
11 people, you know, you have to put it in context. Take the case of yesterday out, where the Thomas person was killed. The other people that died in the course of cross-firing, which wasn't an operation which wasn't operations that were carried out alone by Amotekun.
Okay. Well, Mr. Reverend Thompson, you've been listening to this, and first of all, what's your initial take?
Well, the point is, first of all, when we look at Amotekun, we are not going to look at it in the context of one state. Amotekun is a knee-jerk reaction that came as a result of the surge in terrorism in the Southwest. Now, if you will remember very clearly, I had for about 5 years been talking about the next level, talking about regional security. Now, what I think we need to keep in perspective is this, is that Amotekun must succeed. It must succeed for the nation's sake. And if you want to get my own perspective to all this, it's a tragedy that there should be any loss of lives. But I will, however, say that because Amotekun is more of a cultural offspring, we knew that it was going to have certain challenges, you know, in terms of legitimizing it in the regions. Now, not only that, you want to remember that this is a paramilitary outfit. So we cannot speak particularly about how much training has gone in for the people who are upholding the Amotekun outfit. Then, having said that, you want to bring something into focus here. What I see happening after listening to some of the things that have been going on, I'm sure some of us will remember what they call the Stanford Prison Experiment, when, you know, they set up in the university a control experiment for students to act as prisoners and warders, and how that it brought out a whole lot of reactions from, you know, from those who are involved. Now, it's the same thing that is playing out. And the challenge I still have with some of these things is that we need to still go back and refine a bit further the role of Amotekun as opposed and separate from what the police is already doing and the security organizations. And I'll tell you that this is extremely important because as you look across, in fact, I remember when Amotekun was being launched, if you listen to the comments that came from the Ekiti State governor, you listen to what the comments that came from Governor Aketi too, you'll find out that we have not yet really been able to nail down exactly what Amotekun is. And don't forget that this drive for regional security, because of national politics, was not initially, you know, something that was welcome until it was catalyzed by the assassination of Pa Fashona's daughter. From that point onwards, it gained a lot of momentum. And this is something I support. And I'm going to establish something for you right now that's very important. If you remember very well, President Muhammad Buhari in, was that 2018, January? In 2018, January, in his New Year address, he spoke about the Southwest and the Southwest's ability to handle ethno-religious issues in an exemplary way that he believed that the rest of the nation should learn from. Now, I think this is extremely important because if you look at the war against terror, which is actually the prime focus of the reason why Amotekun was brought in, I would say to you that what the president was referring to then should be part of what are the strengths of what Amotekun represents. We have seen across the country already that military force, the kinetics as it were, represents maximum 35% of the solution to this war against terror. And if there's anything that the Southwest has to offer, out of the 4 things that we need to tackle the kind of insecurity that terrorism brings, the Southwest actually can supply the rest of the nation if we harness the advantages of the Southwest. I want to commend the governors. I want to commend, all the players so far. I want to commend people like General Togo and co, who have done all they can. But I'm saying to you that what we're expecting from the Southwest, once all these teething problems are over, is the fact that apart from apart from changing the military response to an adaptive chain of command to respond properly to the challenge of terrorism, we have always expected, we wanted, a superior ideology, we wanted a superior value system, and we wanted a superior architecture of thought. Now, when General Muhammad Buhari commended the Southwest for its religious tolerance and its handling of ethno-religious issues, without really, if you look at one of the papers that was written by, I think, Professor Shekoni on the president's speech, you will trace the fact that in the Southwest, we can actually extract the narrative that we need from that same Southwest. The value system that we need to enhance in the country is also available there. And also, I must say that from that same Southwest, it is very possible to see the architecture of thought that is needful.
Well,
so,
Reverend Thompson,
yes.
While all this is, very good, some people will probably even say theoretical, the challenge here is the concern that has risen and may continue to rise, that may be the sour in the soup that you're talking about here right now. 11 people killed in 3 weeks, and it's awash in, everywhere online and all of that. And if in 3 weeks, 11 people have been killed and one of them is a civilian, unarmed, we don't know if there are others who never made the headlines. If one was to extrapolate, without, any improvements in the architecture of this Amotekun that you are talking about and, praising so highly and loftily, which, of course, a good number of people all over the nation have commended, it could get worse. One operative has been dismissed as a result of this activity. How many others? You referenced the training the other time, and it begs the question then, if this continues, how many do we know who are within the same system that could be doing the same thing?
Well, you remember I referenced the Stanford prison experiment. And the reason why I referenced that for you is the fact that once you bring the issue of force, authority, power, and enforcement into play, there are certain human responses that could lead to abuses. And that's why I said to you that primarily, Amotekun should not be, you cannot compare the training of somebody who's working with Amotekun with that of a police officer or that of a security operative. I think there's a vast difference.
While that is valid, Reverend Thompson,
yes.
The question then would be, they carry arms, all right?
Yes.
Arms that can kill.
True.
And that is what has happened so far. So whatever measure of training given to them, giving them the kind of arms and ammunition that can kill people the way it is, that's where I'm lost right now.
Well, again, this is what I'm saying to you, that if you listen to what may sound theoretical, but is actually based on years of research, understanding, and a grounded understanding of this problem. And don't forget that one of the challenges we have in Africa here, and in Nigeria in particular, has been the fact that we don't understand we have a very intelligent foe. We have an extremely intelligent foe who also knows that media is a force multiplier. So even as we are considering all these things, the major thing I'm saying to you right now is that Amotekun must expand its scope to lay the emphasis not necessarily on the kinetics or not necessarily on the force and the kind of arms, but we need to shift the emphasis to providing something that Amotekun can make available are the other elements that are needful for us to win this war against terror. So what I'm saying to you right now is that all we need to do is to rejig a little bit. Now, the challenges we may have here is that we have competent army generals and, security operatives, but we've explained to everybody that this is a new kind of war. And to win this new kind of war, the kind of arms maximum is just 35%. So where are we going to find the other 75% that we need to buttress the 35% in order to change this narrative? Within the ambit of what is available, we should be commending the police, the security, as well as the Amotekun right now within the ambit. It is unfortunate but predictable. If you remember very well, OPC2 had these teething problems initially during Obasanjo's time. You remember again that when you take a cultural group and then it morphs into more or less a police force or paramilitary outfit, you are going to have this kind of challenges.
Okay, all right. Has a question for either of you. Marwe?
Well, I'm just curious. First, this Amotekun is a regional security outfit. So far, the stories of abuse and concern and deaths that we've heard are particularly from Oyo State. Is there a reason why it would appear that the Amotekun in Oyo State is more, and this is for Mr. Owosheni, it seems to be more aggressive than the Amotekun in other states? Is it that it's going out of the mandate that was prepared for Amotekun? That's the first question. The second is, and you can take the two together, there have also been questions of the training. Mr. Lade Thompson talked about how the training for a paramilitary organization is different from that of regular security agencies. However, if you read the papers today, Mr. Falano is asserting that it's almost the same training because it's the people who were in these security forces, maybe retired or so, are the same people who will be brought to come and train those in the paramilitary agencies, especially some like Amotekun, and that it's no surprise that we're witnessing this level of abuse because of the same mentality, in his words, that they seem to be bringing to this regional security outfit. I don't know if you agree with him, but speak first to why it would seem that it is in Oyo that we've recorded the highest number of abuses by Amotekun.
Thank you, Malpe. I think it's the problem of reportage now. You see, I saw the headline, 11 persons so far killed by Amotekun in Oyo State. When I started, I was trying to explain in which context were those deaths recorded. Let me first say that in no way, when you talk of rule of law and you talk of institutions that operate within the ambit of the law, no way is extrajudicial measures tolerated. Every suspect is presumed innocent until, found guilty by the court of law. But you have situations, that is where we have to be very careful, where you are in a shootout with criminal elements. Like I said before, most of the operations that Amotekun had been involved were not done just by that outfit alone. Some of the operations were joint operations. And in some of those operations as well, the Amotekun outfit, the personnel were not the people at the forefront. That is why we have to be very careful the way we report issues of this nature. I agreed. The incident of yesterday, very unfortunate one, and you can see the quick response that was made. This is an outfit that started about 6 weeks ago. It's something that is evolving. Everyone will learn lesson. So maybe what we're seeing now is a way, it's telling us to go back to, to the drawing board to say, okay, what have we done wrong? What can we correct? And it is expected that when you have things like this, there are people that would not like it. Right from the beginning, you can see the opposition that outfit faced. We are the same people that have been talking of insecurity. We already know that in this country and in most part of the Southwest, the EndSARS thing led to a vacuum that even the conventional security people, especially the police, the confidence to go out to go and confront criminals were not there again. And we're talking of community policing. Amotekun operatives are recruited from the community. The advantage is that they're more familiar with the area. They can identify people that they would say, okay, this is the guy that has been notorious in this place. So they do like a covert operations, give out the intelligence, and of course work with the conventional security outfit. However, most of the cases, the incident that happened, which happened in the course of crossfire, are being investigated. Let us wait for the outcome. We shouldn't judge. They started 6 weeks ago. We will learn lessons from that. We'll go back to the drawing board. But we shouldn't allow a situation where people that are opposed to that, let me first correct an impression. There is nothing like a regional security outfit as per the law. It is Oyo State Security Network. Each of the states in the Southwest have their own different outfits. So I don't want us to be gotten wrong that a regional security outfit had been created. So we are seeing this. We'll go back to the drawing board. But when the report is, 11 persons had been killed by Amotekun, I think that is also not very fair. Let us wait for the outcome of the investigation. The one that happened in Ibarakwa, it was a joint operation by with the conventional security outfit, with non-state actors, with even the element of Mieti Allah, who had gone into the bush, who had gone into the forest to say that, look, we had been resident in Oyo State for a very long time. We have been doing our business for a very long time. We noticed that some people are infiltrating Oyo State from even outside Nigeria. We share a border with Benin Republic within that area. And when you are in the field of operation, it is you that you have some element of discretion as to, okay, what kind of firing power are my enemies using? And for one reason or the other, there may be deaths that are recorded. So it's the way that is put, the reportage, and the way it is, couched to give it to give the outfit a bad name. We would learn lesson from that. Extrajudicial killing is not tolerated. All the cases are being investigated by the police. Where people are found guilty, you can be sure that the law will take its course. The rule of law will be maintained. And of course, training cannot be adequate. It's something that is continuous. Even the Nigeria police that have been there for many years, we still have some of those things. So training. We'll learn from this. There are some of the cases that are unfortunate, but we shouldn't use that to now totally condemn the operation of Amotekun. As a child of necessity, it's because gaps had been created within the security architecture that we have. And of course, we should realize that if there wasn't that vacuum, there wouldn't even be Amotekun at all.
Yeah.
So,
a good number of issues have been raised from what you have said and what Reverend Thompson has said. And the angle that you mentioned about foreigners coming into Oyo State to foment trouble, I guess we'll address that and a number of other issues when we return from this break. Just a minute.
After the initial controversy that trailed its establishment in January 2020, it appears the Southwest Security Network, popularly called Amotekun, is beginning to find its space in the region as states are taking steps to provide a legal framework for its eventual takeoff. To drive home this point, members of the Oyo State House of Assembly marched into the complex all dressed in attires resembling the leopard skin to deliberate on and subsequently pass the bill establishing the State Security Network Agency, codenamed Amotekun, into law. At the end of deliberations, the Speaker, Mr. Adebo Ogundoyin, gives an insight into what the exercise hopes to achieve.
This outfit will be responsible for rapid economic development in terms of agriculture, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of peace and stability.
In neighboring Osun State, lawmakers also deliberated on the security network and Amotekun Core Establishment Bill. Like their counterparts in Oyo State, they wasted no time in passing the bill into law.
If you look at the bill properly, there is an area in which the appointment of a corps commander has to be referred to the House of Assembly for confirmation. It's part of the oversight functions from the Assembly. That is, we have not give all the power to executive to select or to appoint who becomes the commander in the Amotekun Corps.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State House of Assembly also joined the League of States to fast-track the bill on the Southwest security after it was read for the third time.
A bill for a law to abet Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency Law 2019 be passed into law. All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it.
As it stands now, Oyo, Osun, Lagos and Ogun State have all taken steps to change the security architecture of the Southwest region after subjecting the bill establishing the security network to rigorous legislative scrutiny.
The conversation continues. Mawkwe.
Well, I was going to accuse Mr. Osheni of speaking legalese when I, made reference to Amotekun being a regional security outfit. And he said, every state had to pass legislation to support Amotekun. Indeed, they had to. And that was because of the constraints that they faced and to also reassure people that each state was going to be responsible. But largely, we know that when Amotekun was conceived, it was conceived as a regional outfit. They wanted cooperation amongst the Southwest states. So when I, pinpoint that, when Amotekun is labeled, so to speak, as having gone berserk, a lot of people are going to imagine that it's Amotekun in the entire Southwest. But it would seem that it is the one in Oyo State that, has this abuses which it is investigated. Nonetheless, there was a second part to the question which I asked, which is the fact that the training that Mr. Falana referred to about bringing the same kind of training or mentality, so to speak, which you have prevalent among regular security agencies into Amotekun. How do you respond to that? Do you think that that could have any influence whatsoever in terms of how security operatives or para-security agencies carry themselves?
Thank you. As such kind of thing has influence even on the conventional security outfits, the Nigeria police, the military, and everything. That is why we talk of continuous training, training and retraining. When Amotekun operatives were recruited in Oyo State, they were actually taken to Emmanuel Alayande College of Education in Oyo, where their training was conducted. And I can tell you as of a fact that in the training, the element of respect to fundamental rights in order to avoid abuses were incorporated into it. Members of the Nigerian Bar Association gave them talk. Civil society organization also went there to give them training. But it can never be enough. It is when things happen like this that you look at the gap. And mind you, and I want all of us to know, this is an unusual time. We've always said that, the methods, the sophistication with which crimes are committed now are different from in the past. The pandemic and the EndSARS thing had brought in different, narrative to what is called security challenges. You have situation now where some of the criminal elements that joined the EndSARS went to prison, went to police stations, carted weapons, stole weapons that are still being used freely. So you are not dealing with just, those manual, analog criminals again. So where you have such situation, you won't but have issues like this in a shootout where criminals had engaged you. So we should not just totally condemn what that outfit is doing. It's a child of necessity. They are there to fill a gap, but we should be very careful. We had the same people after EndSARS that had come out to say, oh, the police had left the road. Crimes are increasing. And we are the same people that are coming to say that, oh, the people that are helping us to solve these crimes are overdoing things. All what I know is that it's the learning stage. Investigations are being conducted. Don't let us be judgmental. And we would look at all the gaps, the vacuum, and see how this vacuum will be created. Are we saying that, because things have happened, take Amotekun off the road? Because it's almost the same thing Nigerians did with EndSARS, and we've seen the result. So why are we like this? So everybody must be sincere. We shouldn't just totally condemn. We should be looking for how to correct. And that is how Nigeria police was destroyed. I meant it, and I can say it anywhere. Nigeria police was destroyed because they would say police has done this and do not come up with proliferation of security agencies. Rather than sitting back, going back to the drawing board, why are we a nation that will lack institutional memory? So the police was, fragmented. Rather than looking at the issue holistically to say, okay, what do we do to correct this? You start creating all sorts of quasi-organizations, empower them, and whatever. So we shouldn't do that with Amotekun. Amotekun has come to stay, and we would learn from the mistakes they've been making. We would appreciate even people that think that they have input on how to correct it, rather than condemning. We shouldn't condemn it. We know what we are facing in Oyo State. It's an unusual time. How many of the states in the Southwest face what we are facing? We have a border out there. We have one of the main thrust of the Governor Seyi Makinde's administration as agri-economy. We have that vast land in Okeogun towards Ibarapa, and of course, the old Oyo Park that stretched from that place to Niger State and whatever, to Kwara State. So it's something that led to another thing. Do we wait and allow people to come and eliminate all the people that are doing their legitimate business? I'm not justifying what Amotekun has done, but they are doing their work within the ambit of the law.
You have pointed out the unique security challenge that Oyo State seems to be facing, and perhaps why its own arm of Amotekun will be more in the news than others. But the next question I have is for Mr. Ladi Thompson as to whether, we have studied very efficiently some of the gaps that exist in our current security outfits, particularly those primarily meant to operate internally, and to see how we could guard against some of the shortfalls, some of the pitfalls that they have faced in setting up, he doesn't want to use the word regional security outfit, but it is a regional security outfit.
Thank you. I think that's a very intelligent probe that you are throwing. And let me just piggyback on that probe to give a very an open warning. You see, one of the four things you need to defeat what is challenging us right now is a superior architecture of thought. You see, as a policeman with police training, I can understand the perspectives he's coming from. But also remember that as he's giving his account, he's also mentioning that we have a challenge of infiltration through borders. And he's also talking about the fact that we have elements from without. Now, for somebody like the general, the brilliant General Togun, who is also in Oyo State, you see, at best, his training as a brilliant general, he'll be talking about Clausewitz, the Trinity of War, and primordial violence and things like that. Now, what I'm trying to point out to us is that if we don't wake up to the fact that the enemy you are dealing with right now has not only studied the military, has not only studied the police, but is thinking beyond all that, and it is opportunistic, it will exploit every fault line that you have. I'm going to get practical now. Let me get practical for you to understand how sophisticated this thing is, what we are up against. Okay, he has pointed out right now that they had joint operations because of the technicalities involved in carrying arms and all that. Now, why is it that when the media was going to report that issue, it singled out Amotekun and then quotes 11 dead and the word berserk? If you ask me, it sounds like something that was generated by artificial intelligence. Why do I say so? The people that what you are up against is a war form. It's not a game. It's not just a crime. It's a war. It's a hydra. It's extremely intelligent. And it knows that if it exploits the media as a force multiplier, it can turn the people's opinion against Amotekun. Now, Amotekun, whatever name we call it by, is actually a part of a regional response, which is something that sooner or later the whole of Nigeria will have to admit to, that we need to overcome this challenge that we are facing. So the bottom line is this: as long as your enemy outthinks you, we can't afford this, but Amotekun itself, if you train the police training, you bring in the military aspect, and you don't bring the other aspects, I think it is naive. One of the things that I think should have been done from the very beginning is this: when Amotekun was receiving its marching orders, the non-kinetic aspects, which is the aspects that deal with not carrying arms, but with the intelligent part, should have told you that, look, this is also going to be a media war. So there should be an arm of Amotekun that thinks ahead. I mean, for instance, if we had done that kind of training in advance, which we could easily have done, if we do that kind of training in advance, the moment we see the statistics of 11, and before anybody can print anything, you will find out that the Amotekun also must be monitoring media. And even before such a headline even tries to show up anywhere, the response will be so convincing, because what the response will show clearly is that, look, this is not the way to report this. Out of the 11 cases that you are quoting, this is this, this is that, this is that. Apart from that, look at the number of people who have been slaughtered by these insurgents within the area that we control. You see, if you are prepared and you think ahead, we will win. I've said something, I'm saying it again. The Southwest has something unique. In Oyo State, they have a saying, they say, Ologban Olode. Now, it means that there is a lot of intricacies involved in what we are dealing with. And the Southwest, in its regional response, seems to have the sophistication of thought to be able to make sure that media will be used as a force multiplier in favor of Nigeria. Not only that, I think that the Southwest, or your state, Osun, Ogun, and all that, have to tighten cooperation in such a way that jointly together they would have the ability to persuade the federal government that, look, federal government, this is above politics. This is the survival of our nation. And what we're trying to show you right now is that this is something that will be replicated across all the regions of the nation.
Something that you said and Mr. Osheni had also mentioned earlier is the infiltration of foreigners into Oyo State and perhaps most certainly other parts of the country as well. So one is wondering, now when you talk about collaboration with other agencies, perhaps some specifics might be important here, because the police is supposed to be in partnership with border security agencies that are involved with the borders, the immigration service, the customs service, and all of that. So if we put all of that together, what is on the front page this morning ascribed to General Togun and the governor of Oyo State, would you say then that these federal agencies are aware of these things before they even made the headlines in the first place?
Okay. Well, if that's a director that let me just say this to you. In fighting this war against terror at the national level, we have said certain things. Even when we commend the National Security Strategy document that has been upgraded for 2020, part of what we have looked at is that there's a salient elements that have to be addressed in terms of fifth columnists and enablers, because part of the strategy of this new war form is that if it infiltrates the host body and tries to collapse you from within. What we're pointing out again is this. In the southwest, it's the same people of Oyo State, Ogun State, and Ondo State who say, Pelelako, Olabu. What we're saying is that this region has the sophistication of thought, the sophistication and the architecture of thought that can tackle these things headlong.
Take that
you know, he has mentioned the non-kinetic aspect, and that is why, you know, in operations like this, you talk now of counter-insurgency, counter-terrorism, rather than anti-terrorism and all those things. One of the key elements that have always been missing is the failure of intelligence. And that is why the issue of community policing has surfaced again, which is also part of what Amotekun is doing. And the fact that we've not accepted that we have ungoverned spaces, that concept is something that we've not understood. And I think it is part of what we are doing in Oyo State now, that if the old Oyo Park that has been there, when you used to have the forest guards, when you used to have the Nigerian police that has a camelry section, you know, a well-funded mounted troop that would patrol that area. The same thing is happening in the north. I worked in Benue State and I saw that. So we must accept the reality that we have ungoverned spaces, places that have been acquired for a very long time by government. You have displaced the farmers, the hunters that operate in those places, and criminal elements are now using that void to dominate the place. They are now the people that govern that area. And we are realizing in Oyo State that if we have that stretch from Oyo that goes into Kwara, that goes into Niger, it's been abandoned. Some of these facilities belong to the federal government. And one key thing in addressing the issue of ungoverned spaces is not just about people saying, go and buy drones, go and do this. With all the technology in the United States of America, have they been able to monitor their border? Human intelligence. So is the element of human intelligence that had been introduced into, that part of the non-kinetic aspect that has been introduced into the operation. And you've seen that void, and we feel that we must dominate the place. Places that are otherwise ungoverned, we must make it to look like things are happening there. The farmers that were operating there had left the place. The government had acquired these areas, this forest, for years, 20, 25 years. Nothing is happening. Just like they will say, nature abhors vacuum. So in this case, the criminal element now become the government in that place. And we've seen that. And we now said, okay, with reports that we are getting from human intelligence, let us be proactive. And that is what is happening. Okay. And you will expect that people would fight back. Now, criminal elements don't even want to see security on the road. They want to operate freely and work freely. So that is why I want to plead with the media. When the Daily Trust put 11 persons have been killed, it didn't balance it to say it just reported about Amotekun. We didn't say kidnapping are taking place. People were killed.
Part of the balance. That's the
farms
headline.
Were destroyed.
That's the headline.
You know?
But if you dig into the story, you'll find some other things that are.
It wasn't mentioned there at all. The headline, just like I want to be sincere with you. Okay. I've been in public service. Mm-hmm. You will even confront some of the fellows, and they will say, "Yes, we must use that headline so that they will sell a paper." The business element is there, which I would not dispute. But
if you,
when it comes to
you
security...
said you have read the story. You yes. also know that story also said that two Amotekun officers shot each other.
No, what I'm saying is that we shouldn't, when it comes to security, it shouldn't be the business factor. Security is very delicate. Just like I've always said that when it comes to security, don't colorate it politically, ethnically, or religiously. So when it comes to security, our media need to be very careful. Okay. You don't know it's going to be the next victim.
Absolutely. Now, part of there is this information that has been attributed to you, again, on the front page of a newspaper this morning, that some traditional rulers, you were quoted as saying that some traditional rulers were backing Fulani herdsmen. And if we have we understand that Miyetti is part of the architecture of Amotekun in Oyo State. So how is this, what does this mean then?
You know, the same thing I'm talking about reportage. When we said that, His Excellency the Governor of Oyo State also said that, you know, sounded a note of warning to our traditional institutions, Bales, not just Bales, some landowners that would just come. The Miyetti Allah as a group and the Seriki Fulani came to us and said, look, we have been living here for the past 50 years. We don't even know where we come from in Sokoto, but we've noticed that some other people are infiltrating, that we don't know. And they've accused people to say that, look, when they come, we just find out that one Bale has given them a stretch of land after it must have collected some herds of cows. And that is why we are saying that it is an all-inclusive thing. It is not that we are fighting.
When the traditional ruler gives them land and they give the man cows, what exactly, why, how is that a problem? Or one would have thought that that was some kind of a business arrangement.
Undocumented foreigners. So you see, we should look at this holistically. We have a problem in this country. The borders are porous.
Which led me to ask that question about collaboration with border operatives, the immigration service at the borders, the customs service at the borders.
That is being done in Oyo State, just like at the federal level.
So how can we have infiltration if that is being done?
Can you police Nigeria border? Don't let us fool ourselves. We are a borderless country, and it's been globally, and that is why some elements had not accepted the concept of ungoverned spaces. Because when you talk of it, and you talk of it in the context of sovereignty, you would say that a sovereign country has a border, and you have your sovereignty. We are fooling ourselves. It's a borderless country. Right. So we must accept that concept that there are ungoverned spaces. We'll be fooling ourselves if we don't accept that.
Reverend Thompson, I'm a little confused here, and I believe you can give us some guidance so that other people will also understand as well. Nigeria, as a country, has borders with other countries from the states. Is there any responsibility that the states can? Yes, we know customs is under the federal government's authority, immigration service is under the federal government's authority, but should we have some form of collaboration or authority levels with the state governors such that they can also find a way to monitor infiltration of foreigners into the country?
Well, again, let me just say this quickly again, that he used the word that I just like now. He said holistic. You see, as long as we try to look at this problem in little bits and pieces without understanding what we are dealing with as a whole, it will continue to exploit many fault lines. Now, remember, I'm going to emphasize this for you again. In other parts of the country, we have had the same problems of porous borders. We've even had cases of governors who crossed Nigerian borders to go and appease those who came into Nigeria to kill Nigerians. So what I'm trying to point out to you right now is that the sophistication of the enemy we are facing does not permit this level of thinking that we are adopting right now. So whether we need to use UAVs to man borders and then work also with intelligence, human intelligence, to be able to couple a system, we need to think at a higher level. And I will remind you again that the peculiarity of the Southwest, you see, if the Southwest is not able to rise to occasion, don't forget, 2018, I said, January speech of General Muhammad Buhari, he admired and said the Southwest has something to teach others around the nation. If the Southwest cannot use its advantages, like we've said, for non-kinetic now, in all other parts of the country, and the greatest failing of Nigeria so far has been this focus on kinetics, to solve a problem that is bigger than kinetics. Now we come to a region that is openly admitted has quite a number of the elements that are non-kinetic that can fix this problem. We won't even be talking about headlines at all if during the training sessions that we held initially, we had strategic sessions where we spoke about media being a force multiplier and showed how you can detect it. Listen, it doesn't have to be to sell papers anymore to have all these alarming headlines. We have infiltration. There are global bodies that are buying up newspapers, buying up interest to be able to bring in headlines like this. We have moles in the system, and what we're saying is that the Southwest has the sophistication, even the language, even the proverbs and all that, to tackle this thing headlong, and if need be, something sensitive you've just spoken about right now is the Miyetti Allah inclusion in the architectural security. There's too much mistrust already. Now, as far as I'm concerned, in the Southwest, we need to become fools so that we can become wise. What am I trying to point out? Until you prove that there are members of Miyetti Allah who are colluding with the enemy, there's no point shouting wolf every time. And I'm saying to you that if this thing is done properly, under 2-3 months, if indeed there are moles in the system, whether it's from Miyetti Allah or from any other, or even compromised people based on finances, then Amotekun should be able to do this. And also remember that even the political divisions, this thing will exploit every fault line, even political ambitions, political divisions. And my own final word is this: if we want this country, we may be sitting in an air-conditioned studio talking like this right now, but what we're discussing is a matter of the survival of this nation. And we must never let that out of sight.
Absolutely. Well, we have to thank you, gentlemen. The bringing on the Miyetti Allah was just to underscore that there was no problem between Miyetti Allah and Amotekun, and that the headline that said that Fulani herdsmen were involved in the mix just needed to be cleared by Mr. Owosheni, which he has done succinctly. But we have to thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation this morning. Fatai Owosheni's essay on security matters to Oyo State Governor. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
As well as Ladi Thompson, who is a security consultant and strategist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. We're back in a moment. Just stay with us.
Prior to December 2020, when Nigeria began to witness a steady rise in the number of COVID-19 cases, infections were relatively low, with a case fatality that was less than 2%. However, the statistics is changing very fast, and it is constituting a major concern for the Presidential Task Force, which announced that the government may consider another lockdown if the cases continue to rise.
The Presidential Task Force is very concerned about the increasing daily numbers that we are recording. Yesterday, 6th of January 2021, we recorded 1,664 infections. This is yet another all-time high in Nigeria, and we must all take full responsibility through compliance and vigilance.
We are saying that if these numbers continue to go up and we start having significant deaths, we'll have no option. And if we do not want to lock down, now is the time to make sure that we follow these non-pharmaceutical interventions.
Nigeria recorded 1,664 single-day cases of new infections on Wednesday, the highest in recent times. Case fatality has also risen to 3%, as 1,324 persons have been lost to the virus. Perhaps more worrisome for the task force is the infection rate amongst people between the age bracket of 20 and 50 years.
The majority of the cases recorded are between the ages of 21 to 50, and this poses a lot of risk to the elderly. During this holiday, I'm sure most of us went home to see our grandmothers, our grandfathers, and so in the process, if we were careless, we would have transmitted this virus to them.
The Nigerian government is anxiously awaiting the delivery of COVID-19 vaccines approved by the World Health Organization, but none of these will be administered on its citizens without the certification by the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC.
We are cognizant of the fact that it's not enough to just present the vaccines, but providing information that articulates very clearly that these vaccines have gone through those processes that will assure us of their safety. Working with NAFDAC, the COVID-19 vaccine will not be an exception.
There are currently over 15,000 active cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria. This besides the 77,299 cases that have been successfully treated and discharged from various hospitals.
Today is January 15. Well, we'll come back to the report that you saw in a little while. But for those who know, January 15 is a memorable date in Nigeria. But what is that about? I guess we want to find out a little more about that from Kayla Megwa, who is standing by right now in Abuja. So, Kayla, tell us what is happening, where you are, and what are we to expect today?
In the month of November.
Hi, happy Armed Forces Remembrance Day to you. Every single thing happening right here in Abuja is all about this cenotaph that you can see right on top above my head here. It's about the unknown soldier, and everyone is talking about that right here at the National Arcade in the nation's capital. Is right opposite the Eagle Square. Well, the events have just started. The guest of honor is going to be Mr. President, and of course, as usual, this is a yearly event. So we're looking forward to some of the things that are going to be celebrated today. Remember, this is the very first Armed Forces Remembrance Day in the time of COVID, so that is something to note. Also notable today at the National Arcade is the fact that the wreath laying ceremony will be going on. We're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to the last post. You know, lots of soldiers have died in the past few years. And we're also going to be looking at the families of fallen soldiers and how much support the government has given to them all these years. Last year, 2020, was the golden jubilee of the Nigerian Civil War. And of course, some funds were allocated to families. We're going to be looking at that. And then, of course, we're going to be running commentaries live right here at the National Arcade in the nation's capital. It is Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2021. Everyone is geared up. And I'm seeing that there's a lot of COVID-19 protocols that have been adhered to, even where the government officials are going to be standing right in front of me. I'm looking at the IG, the Chief of Air Staff, the CNS, and the Chief of Air Staff as well. They have actually allocated spots to them on the floor. That way they can keep social distancing. As you can see from the soldiers around me, everyone is wearing their face masks. They wouldn't let me take mine off to do this even. So everyone is putting on a face mask. They're observing social distancing. And it's going to be a very interesting, solemn event, Ayo. And we're looking forward to all the things that will be happening right here at the National Arcade. And of course, going forward, what is being done about those who give their lives so we can stay safe in Nigeria, Ayo.
Well, it's really very interesting when you put it that way, people who give their lives so we can, you know, stay safe and all of that. And that's really admirable. One thing that I can just hope, and you may want to speak to that as well, Kayla, is how impactful you hope that this would be on the populace who know that this is happening and who are wondering, okay, after this, will I be willing and able to give my all to serve Nigeria with all my strength? That's the hope, isn't it?
It It is. It's a very important point you've brought up. You know, when we were younger, everybody wanted to be in the military. You know, there was an admirable thing to join the military. But the willingness to make that sacrifice, does that still exist in today's Nigeria? Do young people even remember that today is Armed Forces Remembrance Day? Do they understand the significance of it? Has it lost its luster? Not among the people here, apparently. Everyone here is really geared up, and I'm seeing the families of some of the fallen soldiers as well, really excited about what's going to be happening today. But it does bring up a question of patriotism. If you've ever been to the military, ever grown up around the military, one of the things you will realize once you enter the training is that they tell you that you are the front and the back. You're supposed to protect and, of course, attack. So you're basically you're supposed to protect the Nigerian, you know, lay your life down for the Nigerian, for Nigeria. And that's a very important question. Is that something many young people are willing to do today? And how do we get that patriotism back? It's a very important question for our time. And we'll be seeing how it all unfolds, Ayo.
Hopes are very high because I remember that, you know, the day we're celebrating today is strategic because that's the date the war ended, the Civil War ended in 1970. And the hopes is that this will never go to those dark days again. But we'll have to stay in touch with you, Kayla, just to be getting the bullet-by-bullet points of the activities of today. So thank you. Hopefully, if it is possible today, before this program is over, we might still cross over to you, Kayla, to give us more. But thank you very much for the good job you're doing, and please keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Ayo.
All right, so that's one set of soldiers. There's another set of soldiers fighting COVID-19 in Nigeria, along with several others. We've been talking, every time we talk about COVID-19, we talk about what the federal government is doing, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 is doing, the Federal Ministry of Health, the NCDC, and the rest of them. But then there are the responsibilities of states, and every state is supposed to take practical, direct responsibility for their citizens. And that is why every time you have reports from the NCDC, they detail what is happening in the various states. Of course, one of them is Ekiti State. And we have with us this morning to have a conversation with us on what Ekiti State is doing to curb the COVID-19 pandemic in the state is Dr. Olabanji Filani, who is the Commissioner for Health in the state. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Doc. Well, most certainly you would be as concerned about COVID-19 as everyone else is all over Nigeria. Do you want to give us an update on what are the peculiarities of the fight in Ekiti State?
Thank you very much, first and foremost, for having me and for the question you've asked. Yes, indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic has entered its second wave. And here in Ekiti, we are putting together all that is required to ensure that we're able to address this holistically. I think I'll start first and foremost with the numbers that we have as at today. We have 44 current cases, 4 of which were new cases active. We have just about 453 cases in total here in the state. 52% of these cases have come from the capital, Ado-Ekiti. So there's a bit more focus on Ado as we think about addressing the challenges that we have in the state. The governor has been very active from onset to ensure that we put all that is necessary in place. So in terms of prevention, we're constantly on radio, on TV, using all the different information channels to ensure that we can reach out to people, informing them and providing informative solutions with respect to what needs to be done. Practice social distancing, use your mask, and ensure that you wash your hands. Secondly, is that we're ramping up testing very aggressively so that we can test as many people as possible. The more you test, the more likely it is that you know who is ill, and you can very quickly respond to that by treating them adequately. And thirdly, is that where people need to get treatment done, where necessary, we'll move them to the isolation center where they are treated there. Thank you.
Well, then, that's not Part of the strategies the state has also put up from information available to us is that you have come up with curfew and banned the gathering of more than 20 people at any given time. What has been a concern to the federal government, the PTF COVID-19, and perhaps Ekiti State as well, is how well or not people are complying with COVID-19 protocols in the state. You have told us what the state is doing to ensure that people do the needful. How do the people respond? That's definitely something that's of concern.
Okay, so I think I'll start with the curfew. We've always had in place that people should avoid gatherings after 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. in the morning. We chose not to use the word curfew for a long while, just so that we're mindful of the economic activity within the state. But when we realized over the holidays that it appeared that there were still a number of people flouting it, then we decided to use the word curfew. So this is essentially something that had always been in place from the very beginning. With respect to the numbers in terms of gathering, the goal there is just to be, it's a very preventive measure to ensure that we minimize potential spike in the state here. So those are the things that are important to note.
Well, clearly, one of the strategies a number of people are looking at, which has become popular as well, is the race for the vaccine. And there are rumors, all over the place that maybe, it's already in town, it's been sold. I guess we'll come to that if it is something that you want to take on. But then, a critical aspect of the preparation for the vaccines when eventually they come and are made public to the states is the storage. And we know that, Ekiti State has just acquired some equipment for that. Tell us about that.
Okay, so what we have are solar direct drive refrigerators that we're already now installing in our primary healthcare facilities. These equipment essentially will give us the capacity to be able to store vaccines, not just the regular EPI vaccines, but where it then comes into play, some of the vaccines that fall within the standard temperature of between between -4 and 8 degrees. So the Pfizer, for instance, and I think it's important that we make this clear, the equipment that we've put in our facilities will certainly not be able to store the Pfizer vaccines, the Pfizer mRNA vaccine, because that requires a specialized kind of storage. However, the other vaccines, such as the AstraZeneca or whenever the Johnson & Johnson comes into stream, will certainly be able to store them. I think it's also important to note that this is a strong collaboration. Our efforts in getting this equipment is a strong collaboration between the government of Nigeria at the federal level and here at the state, working very closely with the NPHCDA. Thank you.
Are there things that are peculiar to Ekiti State, especially when it concerns health workers, because you are not unaware that a good number of people are concerned about that? How are the health, what kind of responses are you getting from the health workers about how people are complying or not about, things that need to be done, especially concerning COVID-19? We'll come to others in a while.
Okay. So first and foremost, I think it's important that we appreciate our health workers here in Ekiti. They've been excellent. There's no other word to describe what we've seen. They've been at the forefront from the very beginning, even when, the etiology of this illness wasn't clear. And they've done a significant amount of job to ensure that we can have very low mortality. I think secondly is also then that they've also adhered very strictly to protocols and ensure that they're able to discharge their duties professionally. So it's worth commending them for that. With respect to what they see or what they think about how people, the level of compliance, the challenge is not just within Ekiti. I think there's a compliance concern across board in Nigeria, but also across the world. Perhaps maybe because there's some fatigue from people with respect to what needs to be done. But the beautiful people of Ekiti here continue to listen to their governor. Like I mentioned earlier on, we're constantly on radio, we're constantly on TV, ensuring that people are able to adhere to the standard. And where that is flouted, particularly in institutions, malls or event centers or any other sort of institutions or gatherings, enclosed gatherings, there is a task force that ensures compliance.
Can you give us an update, especially when it comes to, you talked about the fact that Ekiti State has ramped up testing. Can you bring us up to speed about how many have been tested, how many tests have been conducted so far, and what's the plan to speed it further so that at least we are sure that we are not going to have any fatalities anytime in Ekiti State?
So the national guideline is that we test 1%, between 1% and 2% of our population. In Ekiti, that brings us to about 32,000 to 36,000, depending on the data that you're using for 1%. At the moment, we've done just a little under 10,000 tests. But I think what's more important is what we're now currently doing. Just last week, we had in partnership with one of our private sector friends, we're testing 1,500 healthcare workers and civil/public servants in the state. And this is in further commitment of the governors. I mean, this shows even further, right, the governor's commitment to the welfare of people. And with that 1,500, that takes us quickly, right, to closer to the number that we want to achieve. But beyond that is that we've also decentralized the testing centers. Initially, this was about 6-7 months ago, we were only testing in the capital here in Ado. But now we're testing across all local governments. We've decentralized testing to all the general hospitals in the states, 22 of them across the 16 local governments. And so we're collecting samples there. Just before Christmas, I'd also written to the Permanent Secretary Hospital Management Board, informing them that every case that comes in now should ideally be also tested. So the case definition here in Ekiti ensures that once you have a fever or once you have a cough, you must be tested. There's no new malaria any longer, essentially. And so we need to be able to test as many people as possible. And we're seeing those numbers gradually move up.
Concern that's all over the world, in Nigeria, and perhaps in Ekiti as well. And that is the phobia for the vaccines. So the challenge, the number one challenge is getting the vaccine. And the second is persuading people to take the vaccines when they eventually come out. How far so far with that one? Do you have the same fears in Ekiti State? How is it been addressed?
I think the fears are universal, and it's not just in Ekiti, it's across board, like you rightly mentioned. Just yesterday, someone sent me a video, showing why the vaccine should not be taken. But there is already a tool that has been developed, as with support from the WHO, with respect to how countries or even states should get ready for vaccination. And part of this includes demand creation and communication. It ensures that we're able to provide the right set of feedback to people. I don't think that we will completely quell the fears, but I think what we need to be able to showcase, right, is that these vaccines are safe and they would not alter your DNA or any of the other concerns that people have. It's also important to note, and maybe I should use this opportunity, is we're in interesting times, admittedly so. I think the last time we probably had a pandemic of this global order, right, with this total number of deaths must have been, decades ago, right? And it does mean that things that would happen would be different from what has typically happened in the norm. So when I hear people talk about the speed at which the vaccines have come to the market, we also need to recognize that a lot of things have gone into ensuring that happens, right? Governments all over the world have put in significant amount of resources to ensure that the typical bureaucracies that would take time and the red tapes are minimized so that we can bring this to market and reduce the number of deaths globally.
Well, some people will also say that before we take vaccines, attitudes about the illness have to be real. In other words, people must believe that there is an illness. I know that you have praised very strongly the people of Ekiti State and their attitude towards the illness. And we saw that exemplified in a gentleman who reported his son and asked him to go back to where he was coming from. That was during the lockdown in Ekiti. However, you know, there still remain people, a large population amongst the populace, who believe, or a demographic I should say, who believe that the COVID-19 is non-existent. Have you been able to judge those kinds of attitudes and see how you can disabuse the mind that indeed this illness is for real? I don't know if you heard me. I don't know if you heard me.
Well, I don't know if you heard her.
Yes,
Were you able to hear her?
No, I just started hearing you, but I didn't hear what she said.
Well, her question is essentially saying that you have praised the people of Ekiti State, you know, to high heavens about their responses and all of that. The question she's asking is the believability of people. Many people don't believe that it is real. So how have you been able to, how do you persuade people that the disease is real in the first place before you can persuade them to take the vaccine?
So it continues to remain a challenge. I'm not downplaying the fact that there are a good number of people who don't believe that the vaccine exists. I mean, the ailment exists. Two new approaches that we're using now is, well, three, is to first and foremost inform people that, look, we now know, I mean, maybe the second wave, but just before the second wave, we now know that not everybody who has COVID is likely to, you know, need hospital care, and not everybody who needs hospital care is likely to pass away. And so the narrative around the fear of COVID from a mortality perspective needs to change. It has to move away from that to saying, look, it is important that even if you have it and are asymptomatic, you can never tell how the other person is going to react to it. So that was the first strategy that we put out. The second strategy is also to recognize that even when government speaks, there are other leaders of thought in the state that are important to engage and ensure that they are seen to be engaging the people. And this includes the traditional rulers and the religious rulers, leaders as well. And so we've been engaging them, asking that they speak to people and informing them about what the realities are with COVID. The third strategy then, of course, which we're now going to begin to put into place, is also just to showcase that there are indeed people who actually do have it. And when I say people, I'm not talking about myself or any other member of the cabinet, because, I mean, again, there's the perception that it is a disease of those who are either in government or the elite, but that just your regular, normal day people who have either had it or who have had a colleague or a friend or a family member have it, who just speak to it, right? And speak to it from their perspective and the implications, not just for yourself if you had it, but also for the caregiver in this instance. So those are the three-pronged strategy that we're using, and we'll continue to engage. Of course, as always, we feel the temperature of the citizens to better understand where the issues are. Last year, I think mid-December last year, we carried out a survey to get a sense of where we considered the biggest challenges were. And some of them, when we figured out with face mask, was the comfortability of the use of face mask, right? So again, the states put out a strategy along that, explaining to people how you can even make your own face masks and ensure that they're comfortable in the states, in using them.
Well, Dr. Olabamji Filani, Commissioner for Health in Ekiti State, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning.
Thank you for having me. And thanks to the viewers as well.
Okay, so just before we go, your own contribution to the program this morning. We start with Henry's tweet, and he is talking about Amotekun. On going back to the drawing board of Amotekun, please ensure that dismissed security agents were not surreptitiously recruited. Evil company will always corrupt good character. Pull out the weeds now, as it won't allow the wheat full expression.
Well, Odekunle Kazim has this to say on the same matter. On the issue of Amotekun security outfit, I want to agree with what Mr. Fatai Ocean is talking about. His reasons are why most institutions don't work in Nigeria. Let Amotekun work out in the Southwest.
Victor says it this way: Amotekun cannot change its sports. You don't arm a man who thinks the arms gives him more power and expect him to act powerless. A leopard never changes its sports.
And talking about NIN registration and COVID-19, Kingsley Owe has this one. Says this is ill-timed from the government doing the right thing at the wrong time. You attach almost everything to the NIN with a deadline and then expect the poor who depend on these things not to do everything possible to get enrolled, including breaking COVID-19 rules? That's his question.
And it is a valid one. Musa Mohammed says about the rising cases of COVID-19, Nigerians keep comparing universities to markets, churches, and mosques. But they fail to understand in varsity, students throw parties all the time. They hug at every given time, which doesn't happen in other places. The truth is, Nigeria's COVID-19 cases will only rise. That's Musa Mohammed right there. Yes, that's Sunrise Daily today. Do safe. Stay safe, please. It is very, very important that you stay safe for yourself and for the people that you care about. Have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, it's been a pleasure serving you all week. It's wonderful to be back again. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for sending your contributions. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.